Hello everyone, so today I will be explaining 3 different concepts related to drugs. So without further ado, let's begin. The first one is legal categories of drugs. So there are actually 3 categories, which are prohibited drugs, regulated drugs, and the volatile substance. Let me explain the first one, which is the prohibited drugs. So what are prohibited drugs? Well, these are substances such as a drug that are banned or forbidden by the law. So under prohibited drugs, there are actually 3 types of it, which are narcotics, stimulants, and hallucinogens. So what are narcotics? Well, the term narcotic was first used in medicine to describe any psychoactive substance with numbing or paralyzing characteristics. It has since been linked to opiates or opioids in the United States, most notably morphine or heroin, as well as derivatives of several of the chemicals found in raw opium latex. The next type is stimulants. Stimulants are a type of drug that helps the brain and body communicate more quickly. They have the ability to make someone feel more awake, aware, confident, or energetic. Examples of these are caffeine, nicotine, amphetamines, and cocaine are all stimulants. The last type of prohibited drugs is hallucinogens, and hallucinogens are a diverse group of drugs that alter perception, thoughts, and feelings. They cause hallucinations or sensations and images that seem real but they are not. Example of this is marijuana. And now we are done explaining prohibited drugs. Let us now proceed to regulated drugs. So just like prohibited drugs, regulated drugs also have 3 types, which are barbiturates, hypnotics, and amphetamines. Barbiturates are drugs that act as a central nervous system depressant, and this also refers to the groups of depressants known as veronal, like luminal, and amital. The next one is hypnotics. Hypnotic or soporific drug, commonly known as sleeping pills, are a class of psychoactive drugs whose primary function is to induce sleep and to treat insomnia. This group of drugs is related to sedatives. So these are a group of drugs such as Mandrax, Fadomir, and Quaalude, and etc. And finally, amphetamines. So this is a drug that has a stimulant effect on the central nervous system that can be both physically and psychologically addictive when overused. Amphetamines has been much abused recreationally. So these are a group of stimulant drugs like Benadryl, Dexedrine, Preludin, and etc. Now we are done talking about regulated drugs. Let us move on to volatile substances. The word volatile refers to a substance that evaporates readily. So volatile substances are the group of liquid, solid, or mixed substances having the property of releasing toxic vapors or fumes which, when sniffed, smelled, inhaled, or introduced into the physiological system of the body, produce or induces a condition of intoxication, excitement, or dulling of the brain or nervous system. Examples of these are glue, gasoline, kerosene, paints, thinner, and etc. So after discussing the legal categories of drugs, let's move on to different types of drug testing methods. So the law requires 2 tests to be performed in case-related drug tests. The first one is the screening tests, and the second one is the confirmatory tests. But I will explain first the screening tests. So the screening test's goal is to see if the person has tested positive for drugs. Under the screening test, there is what you call the immunoassay method, chromatic method, and the high-performance liquid chromatography. So the immunoassay method has 2 methods. The radioactive immunoassay, which means an immunoassay is a test that relies on biochemistry to measure the presence and or concentration of an analyte. The analyte can be large proteins, antibodies that a person has produced as a result of an infection or small molecules. And the second one is the fluorescence polarization immunoassay, which involves a competitive binding reaction between antibody, drug, and the tracer, which is typically fluorescein-labeled drug. The antibody can bind both the drug in the specimen and in the tracer. The second method to the screening test is the chromatography method, and this method has three types, which are gas chromatography, thin layer chromatography, and high performance liquid chromatography. So let me discuss it, beginning with gas chromatography. So this is a common scientific analytical method for determining individual substances within a sample. Within the context of drug testing, gas chromatography is utilized to verify what substances are found within the person's sample of blood or urine. Next type is all about the thin layer chromatography. So this is a tried and true procedure that has been used for many years in drug identification laboratories. The thin layer is actually a sheet of plastic coated with a porous silica material. To analyze a substance, the plant material is extracted in solvent. And finally, the high-performance liquid chromatography. The purpose of high-performance liquid chromatography analysis of any drugs is to confirm the identity of a drug and provide quantitative result, and also to monitor the progress of the therapy of a disease. So that's all for screening test. May we move on to the confirmatory test. In order to assure reliability and accuracy, a confirmatory test is an analytical procedure used to identify and quantify the presence of a specific drug or metabolite that is independent of the initial test and uses a different technique and chemical principle than the screening test. So in other words, this is a second laboratory procedure used to analyze a positive test result from a screening test. All positive results of initial screening tests or controlled substances shall be subjected to a gas chromatography or mass spectrometry confirmatory test. And there you go, that ends my explanation and discussion about drugs. So this has been Chalsea Teriz Dancel of BACRIM2A. Thank you for listening till our next video discussion. I hope you learned something. Bye!